My parents treated me like they're made for years. No respect, no support, no future. But 5 years later, the same people who ignored me were standing in my office asking for forgiveness. Disclaimer: this story is entirely fictional and created for entertainment purposes. Any resemblance to real people or events is purely coincidental. Hello everyone, my name is Maya, and in my own house, I was invisible. People think a home is the place where you feel safe and loved. But for me, it was the place where I felt the smallest. Every day in that house reminded me that I didn't matter as much as everyone else. Our house was not very big, but it was always messy. Not because no one had time to clean, but because everyone expected me to do it. I woke up before the sun rose, usually around 5 in the morning. While the rest of the house slept peacefully, I quietly walked to the kitchen and started my routine. First, I prepared breakfast for my parents and my older brother, Daniel. Eggs, toast, coffee for my father, tea for my mother, and sometimes pancakes if Daniel asked for them. By the time everyone woke up, the table was ready. My mother would sit down and start eating without even looking at me. My father would read the newspaper while drinking his coffee. Daniel would scroll through his phone or complain if something wasn't exactly how he liked it. "Why are the eggs cold?" he once said. Pushing the plate away like I had done something terrible, I quickly rushed back to the kitchen to fix them. No one said thank you. No one ever did. After breakfast, the real work started. I washed the dishes, wiped the counters, cleaned the living room, and swept the floors. Sometimes I also had to wash clothes or iron Daniel's shirts. My mother believed it was my responsibility to keep the house perfect. "If you're living here, you should be useful," she often said. Those words stayed in my mind every day. Daniel, on the other hand, lived a completely different life. He was the favorite child, the one my parents were always proud of. They talked about his future all the time. They said he would become successful, rich, and respected. Whenever guests visited our home, my parents introduced him proudly. "This is our son Daniel," my father would say with a smile. "He's very talented." Then they would look at me and simply say, "And this is Maya." No praise. No praise, just my name. While Daniel spent most of his time playing games or hanging out with friends, I was usually in the background cleaning something. Sometimes I watched him laugh with our parents while I quietly washed dishes in the kitchen. The worst part wasn't the work. The worst part was how normal everyone thought it was. One afternoon, I was cleaning the living room when Daniel and his friends came over. They sat on the couch eating snacks and talking loudly while I vacuumed the floor. Daniel laughed and said, "Careful guys, don't drop crumbs. Otherwise Maya will complain about more work." His friends laughed. I forced a small smile even though my chest felt tight. I didn't want to cause trouble, so I kept cleaning silently. Later that evening, my mother called me into the kitchen. "Maya, why is Daniel's room still messy?" she asked. "I cleaned it yesterday," I said quietly. "Well then, clean it again," she replied, as if the answer was obvious. So I went upstairs and cleaned his room while he played video games downstairs. Clothes were scattered across the floor, empty soda cans were on the desk, and dirty socks were under the bed. It took me almost an hour to make everything look neat again. When I finished and came downstairs, no one noticed. Dinner was another responsibility of mine. I cooked, served the food, and washed the dishes afterward. Sometimes I felt like a ghost moving around the house while everyone else lived their lives. At school, things were different. My teachers said I was hardworking and smart. One teacher even told me I had a bright future if I continued studying seriously. Hearing those words felt strange because no one at home had ever said anything like that to me. But every time I returned home, that hope slowly disappeared. One night, after finishing all my chores, I was walking past the living room when I heard my parents talking. The lights were dim, and they didn't realize I was standing near the hallway. "We need to think about Daniel's college," my father said seriously. "Yes, it will cost a lot," my mother replied. There was a short silence before my father spoke again. "What about Maya?" my mother asked. My father sighed. "Maya doesn't need college," he said. "She can stay here and help you with the house." My heart felt like it stopped. My mother didn't argue. Instead, she said calmly, "That might actually be better. She's always been good at housework." I stood there frozen, my hands shaking slightly. In that moment, I realized something painful. They had already decided my future, and it had nothing to do with dreams or education. In their eyes, my role in the family was already clear. I wasn't someone whose goals mattered or whose future needed planning. I was simply the person who kept the house running quietly in the background. That night, as I lay awake staring at the ceiling in my small room, I began to understand something about my life that I had never fully admitted to myself before. After that night, something inside me quietly changed. I still woke up early every morning and did all the chores, but my mind was no longer the same. Before, I used to hope that maybe one day my parents would notice my efforts and treat me differently. Maybe they would see that I was more than just someone who cleaned the house. But after hearing their conversation about my future, I realized that day would probably never come. Instead of feeling angry, I became very quiet. I stopped expecting anything from them. I simply watched, listened, and thought about my life. For the first time, I started asking myself an important question: if no one else believed in my future, could I still build one on my own? The idea sounded impossible at first. I had no money, no support, and no freedom to make big decisions. My parents controlled almost everything in my life. But slowly, I started noticing small opportunities around me. Every week, my mother gave me money to buy groceries for the house. It wasn't a lot, but I was always careful with spending. I compared prices, bought items on discount, and sometimes managed to save a few dollars. At first, it was only $2 or $3 left over. Normally, I would give the change back, but one day I hesitated. I stood in the kitchen holding the small coins in my hand. My heart was beating fast even though it seemed like such a tiny thing. Then I quietly placed the coins inside an old jar in my room. It felt strange, almost like I was doing something wrong. But at the same time, it felt like the first step towards something important. From that day on, I continued saving small amounts whenever I could. $5 one week, $3 another. Sometimes it was nothing at all, but slowly the jar began to fill. Months passed, and my secret grew along with my determination. At night, after everyone went to sleep, I began using my old laptop. It was slow and sometimes the screen flickered, but it still worked. I searched for free lessons online and started studying subjects that interested me. Business, technology, communication, anything that could help me build a better future. Those late nights became the most peaceful part of my day. While the rest of the house slept, I sat quietly at my small desk learning things my parents believed I didn't need to know. Sometimes I felt tired after a long day of chores, but I pushed myself to keep going. Every new thing I learned made me feel stronger, like I was slowly building a life that belonged to me. Of course, I had to be very careful. If my parents discovered what I was doing, they would probably take the laptop away or tell me to stop wasting time. So whenever I heard footsteps in the hallway, I quickly closed the screen and pretended to be asleep. Living with a secret plan made every day feel different. The same house, the same chores, the same voices. But inside me something was growing quietly. One afternoon, something unexpected happened. My Aunt Clara came to visit. She was my mother's younger sister, and unlike most people in my family, she had always treated me kindly. She lived in another city and didn't visit often, but whenever she did, she always asked me how I was doing. That day, I was in the kitchen preparing tea when she walked in and leaned against the counter, watching me carefully. "You're doing everything by yourself again?" she said softly. I shrugged slightly. "It's normal." She didn't look convinced. After a moment, she asked, "Maya, are you happy here?" The question caught me off guard. No one had ever asked me that before. For a second, I didn't know what to say. My first instinct was to smile and say everything was fine, just like I always did. But something about the way she looked at me made it difficult to lie. So I stayed silent. That silence seemed to tell her more than words could. Later that evening, when everyone else was busy in the living room, she found me again in the kitchen. "You know," she said quietly, "when I was your age, I also felt stuck sometimes." I looked at her with surprise. "You did?" She nodded. "But the difference is, I had people who encouraged me to leave and explore the world." Her words stayed in my mind. Then she asked something that made my heart race. "Maya, have you ever thought about studying somewhere else?" I hesitated before answering. "I want to," I admitted quietly. "But my parents don't think it's important." She frowned slightly, but didn't say anything for a moment. Instead, she simply nodded, as if she was thinking carefully about something. The next day, she left our house and returned to her city. Life went back to normal, and I assumed that conversation was over. But a week later, my phone rang in the evening. It was Aunt Clara. Her voice sounded excited. "Maya, I found something you should see," she said. "What is it?" I asked. "A scholarship program," she replied. "It's for students with strong academic potential who need financial help." My heart began beating faster. "A scholarship," I repeated. "Yes," she said. "It's in another city, and if you qualify, it could pay for your education." For a moment, I couldn't speak. The idea felt almost unreal, like a door suddenly opening in a wall I thought was permanent. But the excitement quickly turned into worry. "There's one problem," I said slowly. "Your parents," she replied, already understanding. I sighed. "They would never agree." There was a short silence on the phone before she spoke again. "Maya, sometimes people have to make difficult choices to change their lives." Her words stayed with me long after the call ended. That night, I sat alone in my room, looking at the jar filled with the money I had secretly saved. It wasn't much, but it represented months of quiet determination. For the first time, the future I had been imagining didn't feel completely impossible. But I also knew something else. If I wanted that future, I might have to leave behind everything I had ever known. The morning I left home looked exactly like every other morning in my life. The sky outside the window was still dark, and the house was silent. My alarm rang softly at 5 o'clock, and I quickly turned it off before it could wake anyone else. For a moment, I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the small bag on the floor beside me. Inside it were a few clothes, my old laptop, the jar of money I had saved for months, and the documents Aunt Clara had helped me prepare for the scholarship. My heart was beating faster than usual, but I forced myself to stay calm. I knew I couldn't show any sign that today was different. I walked quietly to the kitchen and started preparing breakfast, just like I did every morning. Eggs, toast, coffee for my father, tea for my mother, and pancakes for Daniel. The familiar routine felt strange now because I knew it would be the last time I did it. As I stood at the stove flipping pancakes, I looked around the kitchen. This room had been my world for years. Every morning and evening I had cooked here, cleaned here, and listened to my family talk while I stood quietly in the background. I wondered if anyone would even notice when I was gone. Soon I heard footsteps upstairs. My parents were waking up. I placed the plates neatly on the table and wiped my hands on a towel. My father entered first, holding his newspaper. He sat down without saying anything, just like always. My mother followed a few minutes later and poured herself tea. Daniel walked in last, still half asleep and looking at his phone. "Are there pancakes?" he asked. "They're on the table," I replied quietly. He grabbed a plate and started eating without even looking at me. For a moment, I simply stood there watching them. This was the family I had spent my entire life trying to please. I had cleaned their rooms, cooked their meals, and sacrificed my time and energy hoping that someday they would see me differently. But nothing had changed. To them, this morning was just another ordinary day. After they finished eating, I cleared the dishes and washed them quickly. My hands moved automatically, following the routine I had practiced thousands of times. Once everything was clean, I dried my hands and walked slowly back to my room. The bag was still waiting on the floor. I picked it up and took a deep breath. Before leaving, I sat down at my small desk and looked at the piece of paper lying there. It was the letter I had written the night before. The words were simple, but they had taken me hours to write. I read it one last time. "Dear Mom and Dad, you always said I was only good for housework. So I decided to stop being your servant. I'm going to build a life where I matter. Goodbye. Maya." I folded the letter carefully and placed it on the kitchen table where they would see it later. Then I walked back to the front door. For a moment, my hand rested on the doorknob, my mind filled with memories from the past, birthdays, school mornings, quiet evenings in my room, and countless hours spent working around the house. This place had been my entire world, but it had never truly been my home. I opened the door slowly and stepped outside. The cool morning air touched my face, and for the first time in a long while, I felt something unexpected. Freedom. The street was quiet as I walked toward the bus stop at the end of the block. My bag felt heavier with every step, not because of what was inside it, but because of what I was leaving behind. Part of me wondered what would happen when my parents finally read the letter. Would they be angry? Shocked? Would they try to call me or search for me? I didn't know. But I also realized something important. For the first time in my life, their reaction didn't control my decision. When I reached the bus stop, the early morning bus arrived a few minutes later. I climbed aboard and found a seat near the window. As the bus started moving, I watched the neighborhood slowly pass by. The houses, the streets, the small park where I used to walk after school. Everything looked the same, yet it felt completely different now. With every mile, the distance between me and my old life grew larger. At the same time, a strange mix of emotions filled my chest. I felt nervous, excited, and slightly scared. I had never lived anywhere else before. I had never made such a big decision on my own. But beneath all those feelings was something stronger. Hope. I took out my phone and sent a short message to Aunt Clara. "I'm on the bus." A few seconds later, she replied, "I'm proud of you. I'll meet you when you arrive." Reading those words made my eyes sting slightly. No one in my family had ever said they were proud of me before. The bus continued driving toward the city where my new life would begin. I leaned my head against the window and watched the sunrise slowly color the sky orange and gold. It felt symbolic in a way, like the beginning of something completely new. Behind me was the life where I had been invisible, where my dreams didn't matter and my future had already been decided for me. Ahead of me was uncertainty, hard work, and challenges I couldn't yet imagine. But it was also a chance to prove something, not just to my family, but to myself. They believed I would always stay in that house, cleaning their rooms and living the life they had chosen for me. They believed I would never leave. But as the bus carried me farther away from everything I had known, I realized something that made my heart beat with quiet determination. Leaving home wasn't the end of my story. It was only the beginning of the lesson my family would one day understand. When I arrived in the new city, everything felt unfamiliar. The streets were busier, the buildings were taller, and the air itself seemed to move faster than the quiet neighborhood I had left behind. Aunt Clara met me at the bus station with a warm smile and a tight hug that made me realize how exhausted I truly was. "You did it," she said gently. Those simple words meant more to me than she probably realized. At first, life was not easy. The scholarship covered my education, but it didn't pay for everything. I needed money for food, transportation, and other small expenses. So while attending classes during the day, I started working part-time jobs in the evenings. Sometimes I worked at a small cafe washing dishes and cleaning tables. Other nights I helped organize shelves in a local bookstore. The work was tiring, and there were days when my body felt completely drained. But the difference was that this time I wasn't working because someone forced me to. I was working for my own future. Every dollar I earned felt meaningful. My days quickly became a busy routine. I woke up early to study, attended lectures at the university, worked several hours at my job, and then returned to my small rented room late at night to review my notes. There were moments when I felt overwhelmed. Balancing work and studies was not simple, and sometimes I wondered if I had taken on more than I could handle. But whenever those doubts appeared, I reminded myself why I had left home in the first place. Back there, my future had already been decided for me. Here, I was building it with my own hands. My professors soon began to notice how seriously I took my studies. I always sat in the front rows, asked questions, and completed every assignment carefully. Learning felt exciting because it opened doors to possibilities I had never imagined before. One of my professors once stopped me after class. "Maya," he said, adjusting his glasses, "your work is excellent. Have you considered focusing on business and technology? I think you have strong potential." Hearing someone say that I had potential felt almost unbelievable. No one in my family had ever spoken to me that way before. Encouraged by his words, I started taking additional courses related to business development and digital technology. The more I learned, the more my confidence grew. I began to understand how companies were built, how ideas turned into products, and how determination could transform small opportunities into something bigger. Years passed quickly. The shy girl who had once been afraid to speak up slowly became someone stronger. I graduated near the top of my class, and soon after finishing my studies, I received a job offer from a growing technology company. The office was modern and energetic, filled with people who were constantly discussing ideas and solving problems. At first, I felt nervous stepping into that environment. Everyone seemed so experienced and confident. But I quickly realized something important. Hard work was something I understood very well. I focused on learning everything I could about the company and the industry. I stayed late to complete projects and volunteered to take on additional responsibilities whenever possible. Slowly, my managers began to trust me with more important tasks. Within 2 years, I was promoted to a leadership role managing a small team. It felt strange at first to have people looking to me for guidance. But the responsibility also gave me a sense of pride I had never experienced before. Even then, a new idea had already begun forming in my mind. While working at the company, I noticed certain problems in the way businesses use technology to organize their services. I started thinking about how those systems could be improved. During my free time, I began developing a simple solution on my laptop. At first, it was just an experiment, but the more I worked on it, the more promising the idea seemed. After months of research and preparation, I made one of the biggest decisions of my life. I left my job and started building my own company. The beginning was challenging. Starting a business meant taking financial risks and facing uncertainty. Some days I wondered if I had made a mistake. But I reminded myself that I had already overcome much bigger challenges in my life. Slowly, the project started gaining attention. Small businesses began using the system I had created, and they recommended it to others. Word spread faster than I expected. Within a few years, the company grew rapidly. Investors became interested in supporting the idea, and new employees joined the team to help expand the business. For the first time in my life, I was leading something that had started from my own determination. The girl who once cleaned floors and washed dishes in silence was now running meetings, making decisions, and guiding a growing company. Meanwhile, life back in my old home had taken a very different direction. I didn't stay in contact with my parents during those years. Occasionally, I heard small pieces of news through relatives. Daniel had struggled in college and eventually dropped out. Without discipline or responsibility, he found it difficult to build a stable career. My parents were getting older, and the financial stability they once depended on was slowly disappearing. Then one morning, something unexpected happened. A journalist contacted me requesting an interview about my company's rapid success. They wanted to feature the story in a business program that highlighted emerging entrepreneurs. I agreed without thinking too much about it. During the interview, they asked about my background, my struggles, and how I had built the company from nothing. The segment aired on television later that week. I didn't realize at the time that someone very far away was also watching the broadcast. Back in the house, where I had once been invisible, my parents were sitting in the living room when the news program began showing the story of a young business founder named Maya, who had built a rapidly growing technology company from determination and hard work. A few months after the television interview aired, life in my office continued as usual. The company was growing quickly, and every day brought new meetings, projects, and decisions. My schedule was always full, and I rarely had time to think about the past. For years I had focused only on moving forward. Then one afternoon, something unexpected happened. My phone rang while I was reviewing a report in my office. The number on the screen looked unfamiliar. Normally I ignored unknown calls, but for some reason I answered it. "Hello," I said calmly. There was a short pause on the other end. Then I heard a voice I had not heard in years. "Maya, it's your mother." For a moment I couldn't speak. The sound of her voice brought back memories I had not thought about in a long time. The kitchen, the early mornings, the endless chores, and the quiet feeling of being invisible in my own home. "We saw you on television," she continued slowly. "Your father and we didn't know." Her voice sounded different now, softer than I remembered. There was a silence between us that felt heavy with things neither of us had said for years. "We're proud of you," she added quietly. Hearing those words felt strange. For most of my life, I had wanted to hear them from my parents. I had worked hard, hoping that someday they would say something like that. But now that the words finally came, they didn't carry the same meaning anymore. Instead of feeling excited or emotional, I simply felt calm. "Thank you," I replied politely. After another pause, she spoke again. "Your father and Daniel would like to see you. We were hoping we could meet." A part of me wanted to refuse immediately. Another part of me felt curious about what had changed after all these years. So after thinking for a moment, I agreed. A week later, My assistant informed me that 3 visitors had arrived at the office asking for me. I walked to the reception area and immediately recognized them. My parents looked older than I remembered. My father's hair had turned mostly gray, and my mother seemed smaller somehow. Daniel stood behind them, shifting uncomfortably as if he didn't know where to look. They stared around the office building with expressions of surprise. The large glass windows, the busy employees, and the professional atmosphere were clearly not what they had expected. For a moment, none of us spoke. Finally, my father cleared his throat. "You've done well for yourself," he said slowly. I nodded and invited them into a meeting room. They sat down across the table from me, looking slightly nervous. Daniel avoided eye contact and stared at the floor. My mother glanced around the room again before speaking. "This place, it's yours?" she asked quietly.
"Yes," I replied.
The silence that followed felt different from the silence I remembered from my childhood. Back then, I had been the one feeling small and uncomfortable. Now the situation had changed completely. My father leaned forward slightly. "We didn't realize how capable you were," he admitted. I looked at him calmly. "You didn't realize because you never looked," I said. The words hung in the air for a moment. My mother's eyes filled with tears. "We made mistakes," she whispered. Daniel shifted in his chair before finally speaking. "I guess we didn't treat you very well," he said awkwardly. For years I had imagined this moment. I had thought about what I would say if I ever faced them again. Back then I believed I would feel anger or satisfaction. But sitting there now, I realized something unexpected. I didn't feel angry anymore. The years of hard work, independence, and success had already changed my life in ways that revenge never could. "I spent a long time trying to earn respect in that house," I said slowly. "I cleaned, cooked, and did everything I could to help the family. But none of that mattered to you." My father lowered his gaze. "You're right," he said quietly. "I wanted to go to college to build a future," I continued. "But you had already decided what my life would be." My mother wiped a tear from her cheek. "We thought we were doing what was best," she said weakly. I shook my head slightly. "No," I replied gently. "You were doing what was easiest." The room fell silent again. For a moment I studied their faces. They looked different from the people I had known years ago. Time had changed them, just as it had changed me. My father finally spoke again. "Well, I can't change the past," he said. "But we hope you can forgive us?" I considered his words carefully. Forgiveness had once seemed impossible. For years I had carried the pain of feeling unimportant in my own home. But the truth was that my life had already moved far beyond that house and the people inside it. I no longer needed their approval to feel valuable. "I'm not here for revenge," I said calmly. They looked surprised by my answer. "The best lesson I could teach you wasn't anger," I continued. "It was showing you what I could become without your limits." Daniel slowly raised his head and looked at me for the first time. "You really proved us wrong," he admitted. I gave a small smile. "Maybe," I said. But the truth was something much bigger than proving them wrong. Years ago, they had believed I would always stay in that house, quietly doing chores and living a life they had chosen for me. They had believed I would never escape the role they gave me. Now they were sitting in my office, surrounded by the success they once believed I could never achieve, finally understanding something they had ignored for so long. The daughter they treated like a servant had built a life they never imagined, and the freedom she found after leaving their house had become the most powerful lesson they would ever learn, because sometimes the strongest revenge isn't hurting the people who doubted you, but proving that their expectations were never strong enough to define who you were meant to become. Thank you for watching my story. Remember, life doesn't define you by how others treat you. It's about the choices you make and the strength you find within yourself. Sometimes, walking away is not giving up, it's taking control of your own destiny. If you ever feel invisible or undervalued, and know that your future is yours to create. Don't let anyone else write your story.